Welcome to the Isa, written by Kevin Rogan. I commenced a trip to Mount Isa, or the Isa as it is affectionately known by the locals, in 2005. Having already been in Australia for 4 years after my bold and excited move from Belfast, I could be forgiven at this stage for thinking myself a true blue Aussie by now, with the lingo I was frequently using becoming more and more uncommon, for me so much in fact, that it had myself questioning my own literacy and understanding. Struth mate, g'day, and the like were common, and despite the unmovable Belfast twang in my accent, I personally felt I had blended in with the land down under. When in Rome, I say, when in Rome. Even the climate had changed me, I felt. Over that 4-year period since I initially stepped off that plane in Brisbane, I became less and less uncomfortable with the heat and humidity and more willing to detest the chill. Let's face it, as every true Queenslander knows, anything under 22 degrees is chilly, and anything closer to single digits is a return to the Ice Age. So here I was at Brisbane Airport again, and about to head north to Mount Isa to commence my new job. As I sat in the domestic terminal, I was recounting in my mind what little information I had sourced to this point about my next destination. I knew that it was a remote mining hub in far north Queensland. It had approximately 20,000 people living there, and it was considered to be in the Australian outback. Apart from these Google-aided facts, I was relying on my own visions, expectations, and mind map to ready myself for what was in store. These thoughts kept swirling within me and ignited feelings of both excitement and nervous fear, even as I boarded the plane with the other less interested passengers. "I'm an Aussie now," the voice in my head kept repeating. "We're just going up the road. I'm ready for this." As I took my seat on the plane, I bid a good day, "Impressed yet?" to the passenger seated next to me, as the captain made his over-the-top and friendly welcoming message across the radio system. "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for choosing Qantas." I zoned out, more interested in the folks seated around me. "Our flying time today will be 2.5 hours. I was attentive again in an instant. "How long?" "Are we not staying in the state? How far away is this place?" It was really hard to imagine that we would be flying for that length of time at speeds in excess of 500 kilometers an hour, and yet still not cross the state line. I felt small at that point and shrunk a little into my chair as the captain continued. "The weather today in Mount Isa is the same as it's been a few months now. That is, clear skies and sunny with a top temperature of 43 degrees Celsius and a UV rating of extreme. Again, I thank you for flying with—" I felt ill and began to sweat profusely. Where the hell am I going again? Have I accidentally boarded the wrong vessel bound for Mars? Google didn't tell me this. Following takeoff, I tried to relax and convince myself that the images I now had conjured up in my brain were just laden with unwanted panic at the unknown. I tried to sleep but couldn't, so I had a beer. An Aussie beer, another part of Australian culture that I had no problems becoming naturalized in, so to speak. From that point, the flight took on its normal pattern with friendly crew and terrible food. As we were notified that we had commenced our descent, my curiosity returned tenfold. We were flying by day, so I pressed my nose against the window of the plane to catch the view of our approach to Mount Isa. Now trust me when I say that the next few sentences are in no way an exaggeration. There was nothing. Miles and miles of nothing to see except sunburnt land and rugged hills. I strained to see a house, a farm, an animal even, but nothing came into view. It was as if we were over a part of the earth that the natural architect had forgotten about, and certainly different to the vast urban sprawl we left behind in Brisbane. Where was Mount Isa? There was absolutely no indication that life existed out here, and I couldn't see anything that might prepare for that to change. We were quite low now, and the shadow of the plane was big enough for me to realize that we were touching down soon. But as I misted up the window with my breath, I kept asking myself, where? Where in God's name are we setting this bird down? As I started to think that perhaps we were making an emergency landing without being notified, the brown earth gave way to a strip of tarmac and we had landed. We were now in Mount Isa, and the PA system confirmed this. As if to reassure panicked outsiders like myself, to say that I was feeling nervous is an understatement. I was petrified, and I hadn't even disembarked the plane yet. We were using stairs today to exit the plane as I stepped out into the weather. I was extremely struck down by the intensity of the heat. If you have ever been unfortunate to be on the wrong side of a hiding from your parents when you were young, then I need not elaborate with further descriptors on this point. I think the captain was being conservative with his temperature forecast. This felt like it was in the hundreds. I made my way across the wavy tarmac and was met with a person holding a sign with my name on it. My escort was there to pick me up and take me to my digs. After a brief handshake and a good day, we went to his car, which thankfully had a superb air conditioning system. Unfortunately, I will struggle to describe for you the 15-minute trip into town or what was discussed between my new acquaintance and I, as it remains as blurry as the heat rising from the tarmac road, but I can vaguely recall the first sight of Mount Isa town as we approached. It was modern, quaint, and busily distracted to the left of our vehicle, not at all like the view I expected to be met with some 20 minutes earlier in the air. The vast Mount Isa mines ran alongside us the whole way to the right and seemed huge by comparison with all around it. The two mega chimneys, or stacks, seemed to shadow all around it as the sun blazed without remorse in the backdrop. I reached the unit that was to be my home for the next 3 months, and after a hasty farewell to my driver, I escaped behind a closed door to the sanctuary of more air conditioning and flopped on the bed. I was now in the Isa, but I was still not quite sure what was in store for our relationship moving forward. All the emotions that consumed me that day had taken their toll, and within no time at all I had fallen asleep. The next day began with sweat angels. I had fallen asleep without ensuring the air conditioner would be on through the entire night. As it turns out, it was on an energy-saving timer, which meant that from 2 a.m. I was exposed to the cruelty of the incessant heat monster, and so when I awoke at 7 a.m., I was soaked through and had lost several kilograms of weight. I strolled outside for fresh air, and even at that time in the morning the heat was intense. More to the point, I had foolishly passed an opportunity to slip on some shoes. As the soles of my feet met the concrete outside, I instinctively broke into a river dance routine complemented with the sound effects of a barn owl being strangled. I agonizingly limped back inside and thought it best if I immediately jumped under a cold shower to ease my now blistering feet and cool me down before dressing for my first day on the job. I soon realized I should have tested the cold water before jumping into the shower, as the spray that immediately greeted me was that which had been hibernating in the copper pipes that ran alongside the building since last woken by a guest. Scalded, and again doing my owl impression, I fell out of the shower and onto the tiles, using my tailbone to break my fall. As I lay there, reddened, naked in agony and dripping wet, I thought the obvious. This day was not off to the best start, but I needed to go to work. Gingerly, I dressed myself and tried mentally to put a barrier between my clothes, socks, and my now raging and angry skin. I knelt by the bed as I waited for my lift. My backside was not in the mood for sitting following my fall, and tried mentally to prepare for making a positive first impression. Had Isa been unkind to me in these first few hours, or was I being unkind to it? I answered myself that only the weeks and months ahead would answer these questions. But for now, I needed to make the best impression for my new employers. As my lift arrived, I hobbled out to the waiting car. It was my first day on the job, and I looked like an overcooked lobster with a broken leg and a swollen rear. A fine advertisement for Ireland, I thought. Surely it could only get better from here. My mother would be so proud.